Let me show you what causes type 2 diabetes. This is very, very important. If you're watching this with just half an eye, let me have your full attention for just the next couple of minutes. This big blue oval, that's a cell, one of the cells in your body. And your cells are powered by sugar, glucose. Glucose is a natural sugar that goes through those funny little purple channels into the cell, and the glucose gives them fuel, it gives them energy. But your muscle cells, your liver cells, they can't get the glucose into the cell at all without a key, and the key is called insulin. Insulin is made in your pancreas. It's a hormone. It goes into your bloodstream, it arrives at the cell, and it acts just like a key. It opens up the cell to let the glucose inside. Specifically, when the insulin arrives you see those red receptors there? Once the key arrives into the receptor, just like a key in a lock, it's now opening up those purple channels, and there's the glucose coming right inside. If you've got type 2 diabetes, you've got glucose trying to get into the cell, you've got insulin trying to let it in. What's gone wrong? The problem is inside the cell. You see those yellow blobs? That's beef fat, chicken fat, pork fat, corn oil, olive oil, extra virgin olive oil, extra virgin olive oil. Maybe there's some 1040 motor oil in there. I'm not sure. That's unhealthy grease that's packing up the cell, and now the insulin key can't work because the cell is gummed up with fat. I'm speaking a little simply, but it's by analogy very much like if you arrived home and somebody had put chewing gum in your front door lock. There's nothing wrong with your key, but it's never going to open up that lock until we clean it out. Your cells aren't filled with chewing gum, they're filled with fat. Now, doctors hate words like fat. It's only got 3 letters. So we're going to call it intramyocellular lipid. Well, now that's a mouthful, isn't it? Intra means inside. Myo means muscle. Myocellular means a muscle cell. And lipid means fat. Intramyocellular lipid is fat inside your muscle cells that's making your insulin not work. And that causes a condition called insulin resistance. The muscle cell is not behaving. It can't respond to insulin. So what do? On a low-fat vegan diet, how much animal fat is there? None, right? And if I keep the oils low, what happens is the fat starts to drain out of that cell. It dissipates, it goes away, and now the insulin can start working again, like it did when you were younger. Researchers at Yale University did a fascinating study. They brought in 26 healthy volunteers, and they gave them a glucose tolerance test. Did you ever have that test? You drink 75 grams of a syrupy solution, and then we track your blood sugar over the next couple of hours. And some of the participants were what we call insulin sensitive, meaning when they drank this sugary solution, their blood sugar went up, but it quickly went right back down because the insulin was able to tuck the sugar into their cells. They're insulin sensitive. But there were others who were insulin resistant, meaning when they took in that sugary solution, the sugar was in their blood, but it couldn't get into the cells where it belongs because maybe something was gummed up inside their cells. They were insulin resistant. So let's look at their age. They're young people, 28 and 26 years of age in the 2 groups. And look, they were thin, 132 pounds, 141 pounds. And if you look at their hemoglobin A1Cs, this will not be on the test, but those are normal numbers. These people didn't have diabetes or prediabetes. They were healthy. However, then everybody went into a scanning device. The technique is called magnetic resonance spectroscopy. And now what we're doing is we're looking inside the cells of the body, and what we see is frightening. Here's the data. Every dot here is an individual. And if you look at the control subjects, in other words, those who were insulin sensitive, they had relatively low levels of intramyocellular lipid. They didn't have much fat in their cells. But look at the insulin-resistant participants. They had much more fat in their cells. And now we look at something else. Do you remember mitochondria from your high school biology? Those are the burners inside your cells. In the control subjects, their mitochondria, they were active, they were burning fuels as they should. And in the insulin-resistant participants, their mitochondrial activity was shut down. It was lower, meaning the cells were sluggish. They weren't doing what they're supposed to. So here's what is happening. These were young, healthy people. But fatty foods that they were eating were packing fat into their cells, making them insulin resistant. So even though they were young and they didn't have diabetes yet, if they were insulin resistant now, because of the fat building up in their cells, that predicts that they are going to have diabetes later on, maybe 15 years, 20 years down the road. It starts when you're young. So what's our prescription? No animal products, minimize the oils, favor the low GI foods.